Pittsburgh Steelers are back from Ireland, and let's just say that game overseas raised more questions than answers, especially when it comes to the tight ends and how this offense is being run. Yeah, it was a win, and yeah, the run game looked sharp, but did anyone else notice what didn't happen? Because while the scoreboard may have been smiling, some key names on this roster were suspiciously quiet, and that's not something we can ignore. So let's talk about what really went down. The Steelers' offense looked different. Not bad, just different. And the biggest shift came in who wasn't on the field. Pat Freiermuth, one of the most reliable tight ends in the game, saw the field for only 15 snaps. Not 15 catches, not 15 targets, 15 total snaps. And Jonas Smith? He barely played more. Just 13 snaps. Combine the two, and they weren't even on the field for a third of the Steelers' offensive plays. That's not a rotation. That's a decision. And it was deliberate. Instead, Darnell Washington stepped into the spotlight, logging a whopping 48 snaps. And then there's Spencer Anderson, who, despite technically being a tight end, basically played as an extra offensive lineman. 19 snaps for Spence, more than Freiermuth and Smith. That's not a coincidence. That's a strategy. Now, why would the Steelers do that? Why would you sideline two of your best pass-catching options in favor of a rookie and a converted lineman? The answer? Minnesota. The Vikings' defense, under the guidance of Brian Flores, is known for dialing up exotic blitzes. Second down, third down, it doesn't matter. They bring the heat. And if you're going up against that kind of chaos, you need muscle up front. That's what Washington and Anderson brought to the table. And clearly it worked. The run game flourished. Protection held up. The Steelers won. But this wasn't some last-minute switch. According to Freiermuth himself, this was part of the plan all along. Smiling in the locker room, he made it clear there were no hard feelings. Darnell played well. Spence played well. The team got the job done. That's what matters. And he's right. Results count. Wins count. But let's not pretend this is sustainable, because it's not. This kind of approach only works in very specific situations. You're not going to line up with 6 offensive linemen every week. You're not going to keep Freiermuth out of the passing game for long. The guy is too talented, too important to your air attack. And even Mike Tomlin has made it clear this wasn't about benching anyone. This was about matchups. It was a tactical call to handle a unique defense. And now that game is behind them. But here's the thing. If the blocking from Freiermuth and Smith had been better, maybe this adjustment wouldn't have been necessary. That's the quiet part nobody really wants to say out loud. But it matters. The Steelers didn't trust their tight ends to hold the edge, so they went heavy. They brought in the muscle and shelled the finesse. You can't keep doing that. Not in the NFL. Not every week. If you're taking your tight ends off the field just because they can't block well enough, then something's wrong. That needs to be addressed. And let's not sugarcoat it. Blocking hasn't been a strength for either Freiermuth or Smith this year. That's just the truth. So if they want back into the offense, it starts there. They have to show they can hang in the trenches, not just catch passes. Because this coaching staff has already proven they're not afraid to make tough calls if it means protecting the quarterback or boosting the ground game. Now, looking ahead to Cleveland, this raises a whole new set of questions. The Browns don't bring the exact same chaos that Minnesota does, but they're not pushovers either. That defense is tough, aggressive, physical, and Jim Schwartz knows how to game plan. He's given the Steelers problems before. So what's the move? Do you roll out the same heavy package? Do you commit again to Darnell and Spence in place of your traditional tight ends? Probably not. That kind of trick doesn't work twice. Not when teams are watching the film and adjusting. This is the NFL. Defenses adapt. You can't just run back the same playbook and expect it to hold up. And you definitely can't keep Freiermuth and Smith on the sidelines forever. The Steelers need them back in the mix, not just for what they do, but for what their presence means to the overall structure of this offense. Defenses have to respect their routes, their ability to find space and make catches in the middle of the field. Without that threat, you're limiting yourself. You become easier to read. But let's not overlook what Washington did. This was arguably his best game in the NFL. He was physical. He was dependable. He was exactly what the team needed in that moment. Same goes for Spence. The guy did the dirty work, showed up in big spots, and helped set the tone in the trenches. You can't take that for granted. That matters. These guys earned their reps. They stepped up when called upon, and the coaching staff rewarded them. That's how a good team operates. Next man up. Do your job. No ego. Still, the reality is that if Freiermuth and Smith want their roles back, it's not just about catching passes anymore. It's about proving to this coaching staff and to their teammates that they can do it all. Block, protect, get physical, because that's what this offense demands right now, especially with the way the schedule is shaping up. And while we're talking about big adjustments and surprise performances, let's flip to the defense. Because one name stood out from the Ireland trip, Derek Harmon. Since he stepped onto the field, the Steelers have been tougher to run on. Coincidence? Not likely. Harmon didn't post superstar numbers, an assisted tackle, a quarterback hit, a pass deflection. Nothing flashy. But what he did bring was stability. He brought structure. He brought calm. And in a defense that's been struggling with consistency, that's huge. When Harmon's out there, things seem settled. You're not scrambling to figure out who's in, who's out, or why someone's in the wrong spot. He simplified things. He gave the linebackers room to work. He let the other guys do their jobs. That kind of presence is valuable, even if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. And speaking of linebackers, what a game from Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen. Each had 8 solo tackles. Wilson totaled 13. Queen had 11. That's old school, smash-mouth football. And it wasn't just volume. These guys were making stops behind the line, blowing up plays. Queen had 3 tackles for loss. Wilson had 2. And with Deshaun Elliott back in the secondary, the whole unit looked sharper, faster, more confident. He added 4 solo tackles and another assist. These guys weren't just reacting, they were dictating. Then you look at the edge rushers. TJ Watt and Nick Herbig did exactly what was expected. They ate. They applied pressure, sealed the edges, made life miserable for the Vikings offense. And somehow, all of this happened without Cam Hayward making a dent on the stat sheet. Zeros across the board for Cam, and yet the defense still dominated. That tells you everything about how far this unit has come. But why the sudden improvement? The answer is not some headline-grabbing fix. It's not some magical scheme. It's just growth, familiarity, chemistry, communication. Queen said it himself. For the first time, the calls were really clicking. Guys were locked in. They understood what was being asked. And Wilson added that the game plan was simplified. Less thinking, more reacting. More just playing football. And it showed. Let's not forget Keanu Benton either. The young defensive tackle is becoming a force. 4 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. That's impact. That's pressure. That's what you need from the interior. And if you're looking for a stat that tells the full story, here it is. The Steelers missed just 2 tackles in the entire game. That's it. 2. After weeks of struggles in that department, that's a massive step forward. So what's the bottom line here? The Steelers are evolving. They're adjusting. They're figuring out what works and who works. Whether it's changing the offensive game plan, switching up personnel, or simplifying things on defense, this team is adapting. That's the sign of good coaching. That's the sign of a locker room that buys in. And as the schedule rolls on, that's the only way they're going to keep winning. With the bye week now in full swing, the Steelers find themselves in a very interesting spot. They're not just coming off a solid win. They're coming off a win that forced them to think differently, operate differently, and, most importantly, succeed differently. And when you take a step back, you realize this could be the turning point of the season. Not just because they beat the Vikings, but because of how they did it. They didn't rely on their usual stars. They didn't lean on the same formula. They adapted, and that could mean everything as the rest of the season unfolds. It's hard to overstate how much the offense changed in that game. And while a lot of the headlines were focused on who was missing, namely Freiermuth and Smith, the real story was about identity. This was not the same old Pittsburgh offense. It was heavier. It was more physical. It was more stubborn. There were no fancy wrinkles, no finesse-based strategies to confuse the defense. It was straight-up power football, led by Darnell Washington sealing the edge and Spencer Anderson bulldozing his way into relevance. That's old school. That's Steelers football. And it worked. But now comes the real challenge, deciding what parts of that performance were specific to the opponent and what parts should become staples going forward. Mike Tomlin's already made it clear that this game plan was opponent-driven. They knew what Flores was going to bring, and they built a counterattack that gave them the best chance to win. Mission accomplished. But when the Browns come to town, the equation changes again. Cleveland plays fast, they play aggressive, but in a different way. They're not throwing constant exotic blitzes the way Minnesota does. Schwartz is more calculated. He knows how to use his front four, and he doesn't need to send extra bodies to cause problems. So will the Steelers still try to go heavy? Or do they bring Freiermuth and Smith back into the fold and return to a more balanced look? It might depend on one thing, how those two respond during the bye. Because if the message from that last game wasn't clear enough, let's say it out loud again. If you're a tight end in Pittsburgh and you can't block, you're not going to play. Not right now. That's just the reality. The game has changed. The expectations have shifted. And if Freiermuth and Smith want to be on the field when this team faces Cleveland, they need to come back with a renewed commitment to physicality. Otherwise, they're watching again. But let's be fair. Blocking tight ends don't win you games on their own. Eventually, you'll need production through the air. You'll need someone who can find the soft spot in zone coverage, someone who can beat a linebacker off the line, someone who can give your quarterback a reliable option in the middle of the field. And Freiermuth is that guy. He has been since the day he arrived in Pittsburgh. So this coaching staff can't just bench him forever. They know it. He knows it. Everyone knows it. But this has to be a wake-up call. A challenge, a moment that lights a fire. Because if he comes back sharper, more physical, more focused on doing the dirty work, then suddenly this offense becomes even more dangerous. You get the physicality of Darnell Washington, the blocking help of Anderson, and the pass-catching ability of Freiermuth back in the mix. That's the balance. That's the ceiling. What's also encouraging is how the team has handled this internally. No drama, no ego. No sideline outbursts or cryptic social media posts. Just grown men understanding the assignment and executing the plan. Freiermuth himself said it, with a smile, that the plan worked, the team won, and he was happy for Darnell and Spence. That kind of selflessness is rare in this league, especially among players who have every reason to want the ball. That speaks volumes about this locker room, about the culture being built, and about the bigger goals that are clearly in focus. On the defensive side, the emergence of new contributors has added a layer of excitement that fans haven't seen in years. Peyton Wilson is starting to look like a star in the making. His instincts, his range, the way he attacks the ball, it's all showing up in big ways. Patrick Queen looks like the steal of the offseason. And when those two are flying around with the confidence and chemistry they showed in Ireland, this defense becomes something different. Something fast, something dangerous. There's a rhythm now, a flow. You're not seeing the confusion and hesitation that plagued the first few weeks. Assignments are being handled. Gaps are being filled. Tackles are being made. Asterisk finally. Asterisk, and it's not just the big names making noise. Keanu Benton is developing in real time, right in front of us. Derek Harmon may not have the highlight reel, but he's doing exactly what the team needs, playing his role with discipline and consistency. And with Deshaun Elliott back, the secondary has tightened up too. It's not a finished product, but the foundation is solid. And in this league, that counts for a lot. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL world is buzzing after shocking reports that Tyreek Hill has officially joined the Pittsburgh Steelers, instantly becoming Aaron Rodgers' newest and deadliest weapon. The move, still sending shockwaves through fans and analysts alike, has ignited a flurry of speculation about the Steelers' offensive potential this season. Sources close to the team described the pairing as electrifying, with Hill's unparalleled speed and Rodgers' pinpoint accuracy creating what could be one of the league's most feared duos. Insiders suggest that the Steelers' front office has been quietly orchestrating this blockbuster acquisition for months, signaling a no-holds-barred approach to contend for the Super Bowl. Hill, a player known for turning ordinary plays into highlight reels, is expected to stretch defenses like never before, forcing opponents to rethink their strategies entirely. Rodgers, on the other hand, seems invigorated by the addition, reportedly expressing enthusiasm over finally having a receiver who can exploit every inch of the field. The rumor mill is working overtime with whispers that this is just the beginning. Coaches are said to be designing plays specifically to leverage Hill's blazing speed and Rodgers' ability to read defenses with surgical precision. Analysts are already debating the potential ripple effects across the league. Could this combination finally put Pittsburgh back in the championship conversation after years of near misses? Some predict defenses may have to double-team Hill, opening the door for other Steelers stars to shine, while others warn that integrating such a high-octane player comes with its own challenges. Social media has exploded with reactions from fans and former players alike, many calling the signing a game-changer and a statement move from the Steelers. Others are more cautious, pointing out that past high-profile duos have sometimes struggled to find immediate chemistry. Still, the prevailing sentiment is clear. Tyreek Hill in a Steelers uniform, throwing downfield with Aaron Rodgers, is a combination that no NFL team wants to face. As the preseason approaches, all eyes will be on Pittsburgh. Will this rumored supercharged offense live up to the hype, or will it be another bold gamble in the annals of NFL history? One thing is certain, the chatter isn't dying down anytime soon, and the NFL landscape may never look the same again. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.